The coins scattered across the Walmart floor like shrapnel. 89-year-old Henry Hammer Morrison, decorated Vietnam veteran, Purple Heart recipient, survivor of 3 tours in hell, watched his trembling hands betray him once again. Parkinson's disease had stolen his steady grip. The same hands that had carried wounded brothers through rice paddies, that had fired weapons with deadly precision, that had saluted the flag for 47 years of service. Now those hands couldn't hold a handful of change. Hammer dropped to his knees on the cold linoleum, trying to gather the quarters and dimes that had spilled from his shaking fingers. His camouflage veteran's cap, the one with Vietnam Vet embroidered across the front, fell forward as he bent down, his arthritic joints protesting every movement. He didn't notice the Walmart manager approaching. He didn't see the phone camera aimed at him. He didn't hear the laughter. Not at first. But then came the sound that would change everything. A sound that would bring 300 motorcycles to this small Indiana town, that would expose the cruelty hiding behind corporate smiles, that would remind America what happens when you disrespect a man who gave everything for his country. Derek, the 26-year-old Walmart manager, stood 10 feet away, filming Hammer's struggle on his phone. And he was laughing. Not just laughing. "Look at this," Derek said to another employee, his voice carrying across the checkout area. "Old dude can't even pick up his change." He added emojis to the video, laughing faces, crying laughing faces, and posted it to the store's employee group chat with the caption, When you're too old for Walmart. Lol. Within minutes, 15 employees had seen it. Within an hour, someone with a conscience had forwarded it to their partner. Within 3 hours, that video had reached someone who knew exactly who Henry Hammer Morrison was. And within 12 hours, every motorcycle club within 200 miles knew that one of their brothers, a man who'd bled for this country, who'd earned his nickname by being the toughest Marine in his platoon, had been humiliated and filmed for entertainment by a manager who'd never sacrificed a single thing. But on that Tuesday afternoon, at 3:47 p.m., as Hammer Morrison knelt on the Walmart floor gathering his coins while a manager laughed and filmed, he didn't know any of that yet. He just knew he was alone, and he was ashamed. Henry Hammer Morrison wasn't supposed to end up like this. Born in 1,936 inches, Gary, Indiana, to a steelworker father and a schoolteacher mother, Henry had grown up understanding the value of hard work, honor, and service. When the Vietnam War escalated in 1965, 29-year-old Henry didn't wait to be drafted. He enlisted. "If my country needs me," he told his wife Margaret on their front porch the night before he left, "then I'm going." "That's what men do," Margaret cried. Their daughter, Sarah, only 3 years old, didn't understand why Daddy was leaving, but Henry understood. He'd been raised to believe that freedom wasn't free, that some debts could only be paid in blood and sacrifice, that when your nation called, you answered. He served 3 tours, 3 full tours in the jungles of Vietnam. He earned his nickname Hammer during the Battle of Hill 881 South in April 1967. His platoon was pinned down by enemy fire. 2 of his brothers were wounded and couldn't move. Enemy forces were closing in. Sergeant Morrison, then just 28 years old, made a choice. He charged the enemy position alone, drawing fire away from his wounded men. He took shrapnel to his left shoulder and right leg, but he kept moving, kept firing, kept fighting, until air support arrived. He saved 6 lives that day. They gave him a Purple Heart. His brothers gave him a nickname that would stick for the next 58 years. Hammer. Because when things got tough, Henry Morrison came down hard. He came home in 1970, 34 years old, with a chest full of medals and a head full of nightmares. But Henry Morrison did what his generation did. He didn't complain, didn't ask for sympathy, didn't expect the world to care about his trauma. He went to work at the steel mill. Just like his father. He raised his daughter. He loved his wife. He paid his taxes. He voted. He showed up to Memorial Day services every year wearing his uniform. He was a good man. A quiet man. An American who'd done his duty and asked for nothing in return. Margaret died in 2019. 62 years of marriage ended when cancer took her in the spring. Sarah lived 3 states away now, with her own family, her own problems. She called once a week, visited twice a year. She loved her father. But life was complicated, busy, expensive. So Henry lived alone in a small 2-bedroom house on Maple Street. His military pension and Social Security covered the bills barely. He shopped at Walmart because it was cheap. He drove a 2003 Ford pickup truck with 190,000 miles on it. He took his medications, went to VA appointments when he could get transportation, and tried not to burden anyone. 3 years ago, the tremors started. At first, Henry thought it was just old age. He was 86, hands shake when you get that old, right? But the tremors got worse. His handwriting became illegible. He started dropping things. Simple tasks, buttoning a shirt, using a fork, holding a coffee cup became challenges. The VA diagnosed him with Parkinson's disease. There was no cure. Only management. Only watching as your body slowly betrayed you. As the disease stole your independence, piece by piece. As you became less and less of who you used to be. Hammer Morrison, the Marine who'd charged enemy positions, who'd carried wounded men through hell, who'd survived 3 tours in Vietnam, was losing a different kind of war now. A war against his own body. A war he couldn't win. That Tuesday afternoon, Hammer had gone to Walmart for the essentials: bread, milk, his prescription medications that the VA pharmacy had messed up again. His shopping cart held maybe $30 worth of items. He'd carefully counted out exact change at the register, wanting to save his credit card for emergencies. But his hands betrayed him as he tried to hand the money to the cashier. The coins slipped from his trembling fingers, scattered across the floor, rolled under the register. A quarter disappeared beneath a candy display. "I'm sorry," Hammer said, his voice rough, weathered by age and embarrassment. "I'm so sorry. I'll get them. Just give me a minute." The cashier, a teenage girl named Emma who'd worked there for 3 months, looked uncomfortable. "Sir, it's okay. I can—" "No," Hammer insisted, his Marine pride refusing charity. "I'll get them. They're my coins. I can get them." He lowered himself to his knees, his joints screaming in protest. The floor was hard, cold. His camouflage veteran's cap fell forward, partially covering his eyes as he searched for the scattered change. Behind him, people in line started getting impatient. Someone sighed loudly. Another person checked their phone. That's when Derek approached. Derek Hansen, 26 years old. Walmart manager for 2 years. Had no military service. No life experience beyond entry-level retail management. And no understanding of respect. He saw an old man on the floor holding up his line, and he saw content. Social media content. He pulled out his phone and started recording. Hammer didn't notice at first. He was focused on the coins, on not making a bigger scene, on preserving what little dignity he had left. "Look at this," Derek said loudly, making sure his phone's microphone picked it up. "Old dude can't even pick up his change. This is taking forever." He zoomed in on Hammer's trembling hands, on his veteran's cap, on the painful slowness of his movements. "Maybe he should shop somewhere with home delivery," Derek said to another employee, loud enough for Hammer to hear. "This is ridiculous." Hammer's hands froze. Slowly, he looked up, saw the phone, saw Derek's smirking face, saw the other employees watching, some looking away uncomfortably, others trying not to laugh. For just a moment, Hammer Morrison wasn't an 89-year-old man with Parkinson's disease struggling to pick up coins in a Walmart. He was 31 years old again, standing in a rice paddy, watching his brother die in his arms because reinforcements came 15 minutes too late. He was 33, receiving his Purple Heart while knowing 6 other Marines deserved it more. He was 55, standing at Margaret's side at their daughter's wedding, grateful he'd survived to see this day when so many of his brothers hadn't. He was 75, holding Margaret's hand in the hospice room, whispering that it was okay to let go. He was every age and every moment of sacrifice, honor, and service, and this boy with a phone was laughing at him. Hammer said nothing. He gathered the last coins with shaking hands, stood up slowly, using the checkout counter for support, handed the money to Emma, whose eyes were wet with unshed tears. "Keep the change," Hammer said quietly. Though it was only 17 cents, he walked out of Walmart with as much dignity as an 89-year-old man with Parkinson's disease could muster, got into his truck, drove home, sat in his driveway for 20 minutes, staring at the steering wheel, and Henry Hammer Morrison, decorated Vietnam veteran, Purple Heart recipient, man who'd never asked for anything from anyone, cried. He cried for the first time since Margaret's funeral, because he'd survived Vietnam. He'd survived losing his wife. He'd survived 89 years of life, with its joys and sorrows and everything in between. But having some kid film him and laugh while he struggled, having his dignity stripped away in public for entertainment, that broke something in Hammer Morrison that no enemy bullet ever had. But what Hammer didn't know, what Derek didn't know, was that the video had already started spreading. Emma, the teenage cashier who'd witnessed everything, had immediately texted her boyfriend Jake. "Manager just filmed old Vietnam vet struggling with Parkinson's," and posted it laughing. "I'm disgusted." Jake forwarded it to his father. His father was a member of the American Legion Post 249. Within an hour, the video, still with Derek's laughing emoji caption, had reached the phones of 36 veterans in southern Indiana. Within 2 hours, it had reached the Iron Knights Motorcycle Club chapter in Indianapolis. Within 3 hours, chapter president Marcus Ironhand Bradley had made a single phone call that would change everything. "We've got a brother who's been disrespected," Marcus said into his phone, his voice carrying the authority of 25 years riding with the club. "Vietnam vet, 89 years old, Parkinson's." Some Walmart punk filmed him struggling and posted it for laughs. On the other end of the line, Tommy Thunder Rodriguez, president of the Veterans United Riders, a coalition representing 17 motorcycle clubs across the Midwest, was quiet for exactly 3 seconds. Then, "Send me the address. Send me the veterans' information." "And Thunder?" Marcus continued. "We need to make this right. We need to make this right." "We will," Tommy said. And the way he said it, with that particular tone that veterans recognized, immediately calm, controlled, absolutely certain, meant one thing: the Brotherhood was mobilizing. Wednesday morning, Henry Hammer Morrison woke up at 0600 hours, just like he had every day for the past 60 years. Military habits don't die. He took his Parkinson's medication, made coffee with trembling hands, sat at his kitchen table, looking at the photo of Margaret that he kept next to the salt and pepper shakers. "I'm tired, Maggie," he said to the photograph, like he did every morning. "I don't know how much longer I can do this." His phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. "Hello?" Hammer's voice was rough, cautious. "Sir, is this Henry Morrison?" "Sergeant Morrison, 1st Battalion, 9th Marines, Vietnam?" Hammer straightened in his chair, an automatic response to hearing his rank and unit. "Yes. Who's calling?" "Sir, my name is Marcus Bradley. I'm president of the Iron Knights Motorcycle Club. I'm a veteran myself, Army, Desert Storm. Sir, I'm calling because we heard about what happened to you yesterday at Walmart." Hammer felt his chest tighten. "How did you?" "The manager posted a video, sir. It's been shared among veteran communities. Sir, with your permission, we'd like to do something about this." "I don't want trouble," Hammer said quickly. "I just want to forget it happened." "Sir, respectfully, this isn't about trouble. This is about respect. You're a decorated combat veteran. You served 3 tours. You earned a Purple Heart. And some kid with a cell phone thought it was funny to mock you while you struggled." Marcus paused. "Sir, we never leave brothers behind. Not in Vietnam. Not in a Walmart parking lot. Will you let us stand with you?" Hammer was quiet for a long moment, staring at Margaret's photo. Then, in a voice that carried echoes of the sergeant he used to be, "What did you have in mind?" Thursday, 11 a.m. The Walmart parking lot in Madison, Indiana. The rumble started as a distant thunder, a sound that grew louder with each passing second until it shook the ground beneath the asphalt. Motorcycles, dozens of them, then hundreds. They came from every direction, converging on the Walmart like a steel and chrome tsunami. Harley-Davidsons, Indians, cruisers, touring bikes, every make and model imaginable. American flags mounted on backrests snapped in the wind. Leather vests gleamed in the late morning sun. Patches reading, Vietnam Veteran, Desert Storm, Iraq, Afghanistan. The Iron Knights led the formation. Behind them, Veterans United Riders. Then the Rolling Thunder chapter from Louisville. The Patriot Guard from Cincinnati. Independent riders from across 3 states who'd dropped everything when the call went out. 300 bikers. 300 veterans. 300 men and women who understood one simple truth: you don't disrespect a brother who served. Not on our watch. They didn't block traffic violently. They didn't threaten anyone. They simply arrived an overwhelming, undeniable wall of leather and American flags and formed a massive semicircle around the Walmart entrance. Then they waited. Marcus Ironhand. Bradley dismounted first, his Iron Knight's vest displaying 25 years of service patches. He walked toward the entrance with a purpose that made everyone watching understand. This was about to become the most important conversation Walmart management had ever had. Behind him, Tommy Thunder Rodriguez followed, carrying a folded American flag and a printed document, the list of demands. Inside the store, Derek Hansen was having a very bad morning. Corporate had called him 3 times in the last hour. The regional manager was on his way. The video he'd posted, which he'd thought was harmless, just a funny moment to share with coworkers, had gone viral in the worst possible way. Veteran groups were calling for his termination. The local news had picked up the story. Social media was exploding with outrage. And now, according to the panicked assistant manager who'd just run to his office, there were hundreds of bikers surrounding the building. Derek looked out his office window and felt his stomach drop. The parking lot was a sea of motorcycles and American flags. News vans were pulling up. Police cruisers arrived, not to confront the bikers, but to manage the situation and direct traffic away from the area. And in the center of it all, a tall, broad-shouldered man in a leather vest was walking toward the entrance with the confidence of someone who'd faced down much worse than a 26-year-old retail manager. Derek's hands were shaking now, trembling just like Hammer's had been when he'd mocked him. Karma, it seemed, had arrived on 300 motorcycles. Marcus walked through the automatic doors into the store. Shoppers stopped and stared. Employees froze mid-task. The entire building seemed to hold its breath. "I'm looking for the manager," Marcus said to the nearest cashier, his voice calm but carrying an authority that came from years of military service. Derek Hansen. The cashier, Emma, who'd witnessed everything and had been the one to alert her boyfriend, nodded immediately. "He's in the office." "I'll get him." "Thank you, ma'am," Marcus said, with genuine respect. Within 2 minutes, Derek appeared from the back, his face pale, his hands fidgeting. Behind him, the assistant manager and a security guard looked equally uncomfortable. Marcus stood 6 feet away, Tommy beside him. They didn't move closer, didn't make threatening gestures. They simply stood there, 2 veterans in leather vests, representing 300 more outside, and waited. "Are you Derek Hansen?" Marcus asked. "Yes." Derek's voice cracked slightly. "Look, I'm Marcus Bradley, president of the Iron Knights Motorcycle Club. Army veteran. Desert Storm. This is Tommy Rodriguez, president of Veterans United Riders. Marines, 2 tours in Iraq." Marcus paused, letting that information sink in. "We're here on behalf of Henry Morrison, Sergeant Morrison, Vietnam veteran, Purple Heart recipient, the man you filmed and mocked while he struggled with Parkinson's disease." Derek opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I didn't mean it was just, I was joking." "You were joking," Marcus repeated, his voice still calm but with an edge now, sharp as a combat knife. "You filmed an 89-year-old decorated combat veteran, struggling to pick up coins because a neurological disease caused in part by exposure to Agent Orange in Vietnam, while he was fighting for your freedom to FIO. Make jokes, made his hands shake. And you posted it, with laughing emojis. Derek had no response. Do you know what Sergeant Morrison did to earn his Purple Heart? Tommy spoke now, his voice carrying through the now silent store. He charged an enemy position alone to draw fire away from wounded men. He took shrapnel. He saved 6 lives. He was 28 years old. He could have stayed home. He volunteered to serve. Marcus pulled out the printed document. We have demands. Simple, non-negotiable demands. Derek's hands trembled as he took the paper. 1. You are terminated immediately. You don't get to profit from humiliating veterans. 2. Emma Rodriguez, the cashier who tried to help Sergeant Morrison and who alerted veteran groups about your behavior, receives a formal apology and a raise. 3. Walmart corporate issues a public apology to Sergeant Morrison. 4. Walmart donates $50,000 to the Wounded Warrior Project in Sergeant Morrison's name. 5. You personally apologize to Sergeant Morrison. To his face. While 300 veterans watch, Derek's face went white. I can't. I don't have authority to. Your regional manager is pulling into the parking lot right now, Marcus said, glancing at the window. Corporate is on the phone. The news is here. You have 2 options. Meet these demands, or watch your company take a public relations hit that will cost millions. Your choice. Outside, Henry Hammer Morrison sat in the passenger seat of Marcus's truck, watching the scene unfold with tears streaming down his weathered face. He hadn't wanted this. Hadn't asked for this. When Marcus called him that morning and said 300 riders were coming to stand with him, Hammer had protested. I'm nobody special, Hammer had said. I'm just an old man. This is too much. Sir, Marcus had replied with absolute conviction. You're a Purple Heart recipient who served 3 tours in Vietnam. You're a brother, and we don't leave brothers behind. Not in rice paddies, not in a Walmart parking lot. We're coming. The only question is whether you'll let us stand with you or stand for you. Your choice. Now, watching 300 bikers lined up in formation. American flags waving in the breeze. News cameras filming. Hammer understood something he'd forgotten in the years since Vietnam. He'd never been alone. He'd never stopped being part of a brotherhood that transcended time, politics, and differences. He was a veteran. And veterans take care of their own. A knock on the truck window made Hammer turn. A young biker couldn't have been more than 30. Iraq war patches on his vest, stood there with a folded flag. Sir, the young man said, his voice thick with emotion. My grandfather served in Vietnam. He died last year. He'd have been honored to stand with you today. This was his flag. I'd like you to have it. Hammer's hands shook as he took the flag. Son, I can't. Yes, sir. You can. You've earned it 1,000 times over. More bikers approached. One by one. They didn't ask for autographs or make a fuss. They simply shook his hand, saluted, said thank you for your service, and returned to formation. A grandmother in a leather vest and gray hair approached with her grandson, maybe 8 years old. Sir, she said, her own Army veteran patches visible. My grandson wanted to meet a real hero. The boy looked up at Hammer with wide eyes. You fought in Vietnam? I did, son, Hammer said, his voice rough. Were you scared? Hammer thought about lying, about giving some tough guy answer. But this kid deserved the truth. Every single day, Hammer said. But I had brothers with me. That made all the difference. The boy smiled. Like today, Hammer looked at the 300 bikers standing in the parking lot, at the flags waving, at the veterans who'd dropped everything to stand with an 89-year-old man they'd never met. Yeah, Hammer whispered. Just like today. Inside Walmart, the regional manager, a man named Kenneth Bradford, had arrived and was having what was clearly the worst conversation of his professional life with Marcus and Tommy. I understand your concerns, Bradford was saying, his corporate training evident, but his discomfort clear. And I want to assure you, we don't want assurances, Marcus interrupted. We want action. Right now. All 5 demands. Or we make this national news and social media destroys your brand. We have 300 veterans outside. We have footage of your manager mocking a Purple Heart recipient. We have lawyers. We have media contacts. What we don't have is patience. Bradford looked at Derek, whose career was clearly over. Looked at the demands. Looked out the window at 300 bikers and a dozen news cameras. All demands are accepted, Bradford said. 20 minutes later, the parking lot had transformed into something remarkable. The bikers stood in formation, 300 men and women at attention. A corridor of honor leading from the entrance to the center of the parking lot. Henry Hammer Morrison, wearing his Vietnam veteran cap and his old Marine Corps jacket with his Purple Heart displayed, walked slowly through that corridor. Every single biker saluted. 300 hands rose in perfect military precision. 300 veterans, honoring one of their own. Hammer's legs could barely carry him. His Parkinson's made each step a challenge. But he walked that corridor with his head high, tears streaming down his face, one hand over his heart. At the end of the corridor, Derek Hansen waited, pale and shaking. Corporate had given him a choice: apologize publicly or be terminated and face potential lawsuits. He'd chosen to apologize. Sergeant Morrison, Derek's voice cracked. I'm sorry. What I did was cruel, disrespectful, and inexcusable. You served our country. You sacrificed for all of us, and I mocked you for something you can't control. I'm deeply, truly sorry. Hammer looked at this young man, this kid who'd humiliated him, who'd made him cry in his truck, and saw someone who'd made a terrible mistake but might actually learn from it. Son, Hammer said, his voice carrying across the silent parking lot, amplified by news microphones. I fought in Vietnam so people like you could have freedom, even the freedom to make mistakes. But let me tell you something. Respect costs nothing. Derek nodded, tears in his own eyes now. I will, sir. I promise. Marcus stepped forward with a check. Walmart's $50,000 donation to Wounded Warrior Project in Hammer's name. Sergeant Morrison, Marcus said formally. On behalf of the Iron Knights, Veterans United Riders, Rolling Thunder, Patriot Guard, and every rider here today, we stand with you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice. And thank you for reminding us why we never leave brothers behind. The parking lot erupted in cheers. 300 engines fired up simultaneously, creating a roar that shook windows. It wasn't aggressive, it was celebratory, triumphant. Henry Hammer Morrison, 89-year-old Vietnam veteran who'd thought his dignity had been destroyed, stood in the center of 300 of his brothers and sisters, and finally understood he'd never been alone. He'd never stopped mattering. His service, his sacrifice, his struggles, they all meant something, because brotherhood doesn't end when you take off the uniform. It doesn't fade when you get old. It doesn't disappear when your hands shake. Brotherhood is forever. 3 months later, Derek Hansen was no longer employed at Walmart. He'd enrolled in community college and started volunteering at the VA hospital, trying to understand and honor the veterans he'd once disrespected. Emma Rodriguez received her raise and a formal apology. She used part of her extra income to volunteer with local veteran organizations. Walmart made their donation and issued a corporate-wide training on respecting veterans and people with disabilities. And Henry Hammer Morrison? He got his medications on time now. Marcus and the Iron Knights made sure of that. He had riders checking on him weekly. He was invited to club events, military ceremonies, veteran gatherings. He still had Parkinson's. His hands still shook. Getting old was still hard, but he was never alone again. Because brotherhood, real brotherhood, means showing up. It means standing with someone when the world has knocked them down. It means 300 motorcycles rolling into a parking lot to say one simple truth. This man matters, his service matters, his dignity matters. We never leave brothers behind. Not in Vietnam. Not in a Walmart parking lot. Not ever. If you believe in standing up for those who served, If you believe in protecting veterans' dignity, if you believe that real strength means using your power to honor those who sacrificed, subscribe to this channel. Comment: we never leave brothers behind, because every veteran deserves respect. Every veteran deserves dignity. Every veteran deserves a brotherhood that shows up when it matters most. And sometimes, justice arrives on 300 motorcycles.